fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
What's up, guys? Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again here with the Salt Strong Podcast. I want to introduce real quick Rich, who is one of our fishing coaches, and along with Matt and Pat, get on and go through some really, really awesome questions from a live audience. I think you will absolutely love this. Two quick announcements. One, the slot machine rod is finally available for sale. We had the first round go live at fishstrong.com, and it sold out within hours. And this is the custom built rod. I mean, and it's not for offshore fishing. It's not for bass fishing. This is specifically made, like custom built, for redfish and speckled trout and snook and flounder. And this is really about a $450 rod. Our members are getting it from that $250, $260 range. Absolute no-brainer. Our whole goal was to be able to give an extra $100 off the final retail price to our members to pay for their membership in one purchase. And so what I want you to do next, if you are interested in this rod, go to fishstrong.com and get on the notification list, because that is who we notify first before we send an email out to the masses to let everyone know we have these in. So what happened last time, only the people on that notification list even knew about it. They got the notification first, and that's how it sold out. We'll do that for probably the first few rounds before we actually open it up, with a blast email to everyone. So go to fishstrong.com, look up the slot machine rod, get on the notification list. It's completely for free. Doesn't bind you to anything. It just gives you the opportunity to buy it first when we get the next round in. The number two thing is smart fishing spots. We have made a ton of changes, added a ton of new data in there and a ton of new data points, just making it easier for you to pre-trip plan your trips to find the best spots based on the wind and based on the temperatures and based on all the different variables that we deal with every single day as anglers. So definitely go back in and check out Smart Fishing Spots if you haven't been in there in a while. If you aren't a member, what the heck are you waiting on? So I'm going to give you $100 off your next rod purchase and show you where to fish every week, because that is exactly what we do. Go to saltstrong.com if you're not a member. And if you are, thank you so much for all the support. We love you guys. You're the foundation of this company. And here is Rich and the crew with the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Salt Strong live stream and podcast. My name is Rich Natoli. I'm your regular host of this Monday night edition, and I'm joined, as always, by the lovely and very talented Ed Gobo. Ed, how you doing?
Good. Excited to be on tonight. This was a rare treat that I get to join on the coaches show. So.
Oh, yeah, on the coaches show. Well, you should be on. Sometimes we don't want to have too many people on at one time, but
it gets hectic.
People do ask about you when you're not here, so may as well have you on, right?
Yeah, well, thanks. I feel the love.
Yeah, as long as your wife doesn't get mad at me for stealing you away.
Oh, she doesn't care.
That's what I figured. I was just being nice. She's probably in there thanking me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like my wife is downstairs. Like, oh, thank God he went upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. Yeah, so she's hanging out with my daughter. So, Ed, have you hit the water lately?
Yeah, what did we got out? What was it last Wednesday?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because I took off last Monday night to get my kayak and everything in order, and which I successfully did. Got the garage cleaned out. The garage door opens now, so that's a plus. And we got out. It was a tough day. It was a little harder than I expected. I guess we finally found them on some of those ledges in the river. So
yeah,
a couple nice bass all around. So it's a good day.
It was a nice grind. And insider member Bill Deekhouse was with us. He ended up getting his first one of the year. Right? Was that the same day?
Yeah,
that was. I'm on lack of sleep right now. I had to move my daughter this weekend. I was out fishing today. I was up at 4. Yeah. And then I was out today, and I was telling Pat backstage, it was one of those days where, and I don't have any of the footage downloaded or anything yet, but you talk about striped bass stacked. I mean, it looked on the fish finder just like layer upon layer of bacon. It was all over the place. You could even at times like feel it bouncing off of them. And it was such a hard bite. Threw everything I had at him like 3 times. Ended up with 3 fish personally, and not many people were catching. It was just one of those difficult days, but it was nice up until the wind kicked in 5.5 hours early, and it got a little dicey. I would say it got dangerous, but I'm just an old man who gets, a little bit more cautious than other people.
Now let me quiz you, Rich. Did you happen to take notice of like any changes in the barometric pressure or anything like that?
Well, you knew that it was dropping because the storm coming in, right? So it was dropping, but it was supposed to drop. I mean, it was going to drop throughout the day. It was at the end of the drop, right? And then the wind came in, and it was just. I should have checked to see how long it had been dropping, because like with anything, a prolonged drop or a prolonged rise can affect the bite. But usually, the calm before the storm, it wasn't that today. It was just brutal. It was brutal. The people were very bitter over the radio today.
Well, a friend of mine, the reason I asked, because a friend of mine went out to the same place you were yesterday, and they
slayed it,
mopped them all up. So
yeah,
surprised to hear you only caught a couple.
Yeah, talked to a guy who had 120 yesterday between he and his 2 buddies. 120 fish. The smallest one, Ed, 28 inches.
Wow.
The smallest was a keeper.
That's crazy.
Whereas I think the largest between the 3 of us that were out there together, now there were probably 12 kayaks out there and a whole bunch of boats, was probably 25 was the biggest. So it is what it is. It's migration bass fishing. But want to say hi to everybody in the chat, and we're going to get rolling because this is going to be Coach's show, Coaches and Questions. And so any questions that you have, start loading them up in the chat right now. Got James Flynn, I Feel Fishy, John Hutchinson, Antonio, good to see you, Bill Deekhouse, who I just mentioned, Brian's Guitars, Peter Niblick, Bill, Angel Perez. I can't, it's so hard to see. I have to dim my screen so that my glasses don't reflect. Saltwater chatter in there. So welcome, guys. We're going to go right to the coaches right now. So I'm going to bring them on stream. We'll do a quick introduction. You should know these guys by now. We got Pat Ogletree, who's been on, I think, the most for these coaches shows. So welcome back, Pat.
Thank you, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I love doing these shows, and I'm excited for it. And then we got Matt and the Yak, the recent tournament winner. For those that are unaware, Matt went out and just first place in a redfish tournament last week, I believe it was. So, welcome.
Congrats.
Good to see you back.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
This is going to be a fun one. So let's see. Let me get the first one up here. We're just going to roll right into the questions.
You want me to put them up, Rich?
Yeah, if you would. There was one I wanted to bring up first, and I wanted to. Let me just find it here. Just a comment. I just hope there are more fisherwomen than just me. I just want to make a comment about this. We actually have a lot of women that follow this live stream and podcast. They have since back when it was before Salt Strong. And we actually have a lot of women guests that come on as well. So if you're a woman and you are watching this, you are not alone. Trust me. I have met several women out on the water who came up to me and they mentioned that they listen to the podcast when they're driving to the water, and they watch the live streams whenever they can. So you are not alone. We have plenty of women.
Where's Elle? She's usually in here.
Elle, yeah, she might be in here. She might be lurking. What was our guest last week? Captain Kayla was on. So yes, you are not alone. So I just wanted to mention that this is men and women, kids as well. We have all the ages, both genders covered. So welcome. Good to see you. And Ed, if you want to start with some of the questions, just throw them up on the screen.
The first one I saw that came through, I think this would be a good one for you guys. What rod do you recommend for 33 to 28 inch snook? Anything under 150. Try to pair it up with a Shimano Nasty 5000 and 30-pound Power Pro. Any recommendations?
Well, it's going to have to be one of the 2 guys that fish Florida. As I've mentioned before, And then people make fun, actually started making fun of me. I've never caught a snook, so I'm not going to comment on this one. Pat, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was actually literally snook fishing a couple hours ago, but came up empty-handed on the snook. But anyway, and that's in Texas. I'm actually in Texas now, snook fishing. But either way, yeah, actually, anything that you're going to do, the rod is really going to be dependent on what you're going to do. He didn't happen to say if he was live bait or artificial. So, you know, a 28 to 33 inch snook, you know, any of your standard inshore fishing that we have here, the gear that you're using in Florida, which is your medium power, a 7 foot to 7.5 foot. If you're fishing open flats, it's going to be perfectly fine. If you're fishing around structure, say you're around some docks or you're around some mangroves, you might want to step up to a medium heavy. But honestly, the 30-pound is probably overkill unless you're around some really nasty structure. I would probably use 15-pound and even like a 3,000 sized reel. You know, these fish are strong. You know, these 28 to 33 inch snook are strong, but you really don't need to get, you know, into the really big stuff until you're into those 40 to, you know, mid 40 inch class. Then you can step up the gear. Or if you're fishing in passes, you get passes with current and heavy structure, then you'll need to step it up. But, you know, just your standard inshore stuff, medium to medium heavy, 7 to 7.5 foot. As far as brand name, the TFO Pro is a great one. And one of my favorites right now that I've been using is a Cash and Element inshore, American made rod. It's about $130 retail. For the price, you can't beat it.
I was thinking about picking that rod up myself, to be honest with you.
Yep. Love that rod.
All right. Matt, did you want to comment on that one, or are you good?
No, I'm going to defer to Pat on that one. I can count the number of snook I've caught on two hands. So I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but actually species, or, you know, excuse me, all of that aside, you know, my experience aside, but Pat nailed it. You're probably a little over geared there, though, truthfully, with that size reel and that size line. You know, I was going to say you could probably get away with a 3,020 pound line, you know, and that's pretty much exactly what Pat said. But, you know, your rod's going to be doing most of the work there.
To follow that up, he's going to be using live shrimp and ladyfish. No artificials.
Okay. Well, then he definitely, and if he's using ladyfish, whole ladyfish, he's got a shot at something a little bit bigger than 33 inches. I think he named up there at the top. But yeah, you know, just to be safe. I mean, with that, you know, you definitely, I've seen some monster snook pulled with ladyfish. So you may have the right material there. I'm not sure where he's fishing. Pat said that too. That's something else that's pretty important. You know, depending on where you're fishing, that gear may be exactly what you need, you know, but I'm not sure what type of, if he's on open flats, then, you know, may still be a little bit different.
Yeah, I'll just say this, not to talk about that specific species or the question, but along the lines that you were going, Matt. I think one thing that tends to happen is most people overgear, and we tend to, I guess, as coaches, and Ed, you tend to do this too. I think we go on the low side. So when we fish for something, we're typically on the lower end, and we try to keep it as small as possible. But with that said, you know, I still have 4,000 size reels that I did until it sank off the coast when it went over the edge of the kayak. But, you know, I still use those as well. But I think what you'll find out, and there was a question in the community, what size reel and what size rod should I have for striped bass? And my answer was, well, just, you know, the 2,500 or 3,000, you're going to be fine. And as proof of that, I'm pulling a nearly 50-inch fish on that exact setup, you know, 10-pound braid. And as long as you have the right rod, as Pat mentioned, he gave a couple of good ones there, you don't have to go up with that higher, that more powerful gear, those bigger drag systems on the 5,000 or the 4,000 reels. Now, if you have it, that's fine. Just keep in mind, it may not balance as well as one of the lighter reels on some of those rods. So just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. But I'm always the one that says, if you've already got it, fish it. You know, don't get rid of it just because it's not a 2,500. If somebody says use a 2,500, if it's a 4,000 and you've got it and it's not too heavy for you, fish it. Just fish it until it's dead. And then next time, maybe you go to a 3,000 or the 2,500.
But if he is throwing ladyfish, just to say with that 5,000 Nasi, he's probably going to want something at least a medium heavy or heavy size. Just if you are trying to pair a rod to that exact reel, I would definitely look on the heavier end of things, especially if you're throwing live ladyfish. Those are going to be a little bit more on the heavy side. So definitely want to beef up the rod selection if that's the reel you're going to pair it with, though.
Yeah, and I'm going to be heading down to Florida the second week of April, so you guys just kind of solidified my new purchases. I got a Tsunami medium heavy 7.6 what is it, the nano carbon one, and then I got a 3,000 Daiwa eliminator. So yeah, that should be a pretty deadly setup. All right, so it looks like Cody Buchanan, he just moved to Edgewater from Hickory, North Carolina. So I'm assuming Edgewater, Florida. Trying to figure out saltwater. His boat's not fixed, so he's fishing from the bank. I would love to know how to catch a redfish bank fishing.
Well, that's actually my home water, so I guess I'll jump in on this one.
Yeah,
that's the Mosquito Lagoon area, and it's absolutely possible to catch redfish from the bank there. But it's just like any other thing. You want to make sure and not just pick any place that you can walk up to, but you have to think about the seasonal trends. You know how it's spring, we got transition periods. These fish are really bait oriented, so if you get to a spot, you want to make sure that you're going to see jumping mullet, that you're going to see some fingerling mullet in the water where you're at. You'll need a little bit of current, but these redfish, they don't like to fight the current that much. They're going to be current adjacent. So if you can find a point that's got some current that's sweeping around it on the backside of that point, a lot of times that's where you're going to see your fish. But being land based, you're probably going to be my best recommendation is to get on a map, find a couple of parks that are in the area that's got some structure nearby, and don't spend too much time in one place. If you get to a place and it doesn't look like you've got the bait there, that there's not enough current, or it just doesn't look right, then move to the next one. And what's going to happen is after a while you're gonna eliminate some dead places. Right now in Edgewater, if you can get near the New Smyrna Causeway, the North Side Causeway, there's some redfish in there. There's some bruisers, but once you get your boat going, that's going to open things up, and there's a lot of fish in the area. You gotta get to know it.
Let's see what's next. This one for you, Rich. What area of the country were we catching those rockfish and or striped bass?
Yeah, so we were actually today. So when Ed and I went out last week, we were near Ocean City, New Jersey. So we were in the central part of the state, and when we were fishing today, I was up in the Raritan Bay, Raritan River area. So northern New Jersey, New York, basically right on the line there on the New Jersey side. Keep that in mind, people, so you don't get arrested and you don't get huge fines. But so it was right in that area. Right, essentially, it was at the Raritan where it came out into the bay. And I will tell you that the bass were stacked. Not just right there. They were stacked all the way in the Raritan and all the way in the Raritan Bay, like all the way out through the shipping channel. So there were fish stacked all over the place. They just weren't biting. So for those that want to say it's a spot burn, it's the Raritan Bay. It is always on fire with striped bass. It is literally the best place on the East Coast of the United States to target striped bass in the spring and the fall. And it's no exception right now, although they weren't really chewing today. They were there.
And if I could throw out a pro tip for if you plan on fishing the Raritan, New Jersey and New York have a very similar saltwater registry program. Make sure you're registered in both states in case you do cross the line.
It's easy to cross the line.
Yes, it's very, very easy. And also the regs are whichever port you launch your boat from. So if you launch in Jersey, you have to follow the Jersey regs.
Yes. However, if you do venture into New York waters, they can stop you while you're in the waters. Mm-hmm. So be really careful with that, especially striped bass. They're all over it, and there are Fish and Game people out there. I didn't see them today. However, I have seen the posts. Fish and Game came by for people that were night fishing 2 nights ago. So, or was it 2 nights? Yeah, I think it was 2 nights ago. The fishing game was making their rounds. So just make sure you're careful. The last thing you want to do is mess with striped bass because that's the one that they're always focused on the most.
All right. And it looks like Starcaster put in a more so a shout out. Not to sound like an ad, but before I joined the insider community, I was very skeptical. I thought what could make a community cost $90? Boy, was I wrong. So thank you.
Yeah. So we should, I'm just going to comment on that. I think, and I say this, yes, I'm a coach now, but I was a member for a long time. It's like Hair Club. I'm not just a member. I'm also a client. I was a paying member for a long time living up in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic. And the information that you get out of the community, whether you're in the Mid-Atlantic or Northeast, you're going to be getting stuff from me all week. If you're down south, you're going to get, Panhandle. You're going to get stuff from Matt. Well, you're going to get stuff from Matt and Pat no matter what, because they do things that cross over. But it is a great value. And look, if you're not a member already, you should be, because you can always cancel and get your money back. So at least give it a try. And go in and check it out, and you're going to be surprised. You're definitely going to be surprised. The things that we do on this Ask the Coach it's not even a drop in the bucket. We have a lot of insiders that watch, and they don't ask their questions here. They ask them in the community because they get more comprehensive answers. We've talked about a couple of quote unquote spots, but we didn't. We talked about areas. You're actually getting spots inside the community from not only from coaches, but also from other members. And you can always meet up with people and head out on the water with other people that are in the group. It's awesome. It is. And well, you also get tackle discounts. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would consider that an ad. So
North Tampa Bay wade fisher here, headed out this weekend for vacation. Any tips?
Yeah, I'll grab that one too. Not to step on any toes here, but the Tampa Bay area down to Sarasota just got hit by a pretty bad cycle of red tide. So I would try to focus my efforts on the area where there wasn't red tide. So once red tide hits an area, the fish, they move out. So it takes them a while to move back in. Good places to look is going to be what they call the upper Tampa Bay or old Tampa Bay, which is further inside. Typically this time of year, I like to move out towards the mouth of the bay, but the mouth of the bay was just, it was riddled with red tide. So I would definitely try to go up into the upper old Tampa Bay area. Picnic Island and Whedon Island are good places right now because they didn't get hit by red tide, and there's plenty of places to get in the water and wade. So check those two out.
I'll jump in here too. I'm not familiar with the geography of Tampa Bay very well, so Pat may be able to help with this. But my first snook on artificial ever came out of Tampa Bay at Piney Point. I don't know if that's really a part of the area that's being affected right now really bad or not. But if it's not, I know that Piney Point is a place that you could go to definitely get on a bite. I was out there, I think 40 minutes and caught my first snook on artificial on our Fred paddle tail. Able to walk out there, identified bait and birds, oyster bar, a dock, all the signs were right. I was just had to wait for the fish, and it worked out. So that's a place that you could definitely check out. And if you want to see that full report, it's at saltstrong.com.
Awesome. Sorry, guys. I think I have a ballast going bad here. My lights are flickering all over the place.
It's all right. It's the special effects. It's a high budget production that we have here.
I hope I don't trigger anybody's epilepsy or anything. All right. So we have I Feel Fishy back to the north. What tides were you fishing today, Rich?
Well, that was part of it. When we got there, we took our time getting on the water because it was slack. It was slack low. And we went out, we took our time getting on the water, and we just sat there, and our drift was zero. There was no wind at the time. So we fished basically the incoming, and luckily we got out of there when the winds kicked up before outgoing started, because that would have been a disaster if we had gotten hit with outgoing and that wind coming in. So it was basically incoming tide that we fished, which, by the way, was not what we wanted to fish. Our entire hope for the day was to just kind of spend a few hours just fishing the whole incoming and pick up a few fish and actually fish the outgoing. That's where we thought we would produce, but the winds kicked up. It got dicey. As I mentioned earlier, I thought it was getting a little dangerous. So I got off the water. The group I was with got off, and everybody else made a beeline for the launches at that point. So,
Angel, just wanted to know the best saltwater bank, beach, and pier areas around Tampa. I think we just kind of touched on it, but maybe a little more in towards like the beach bank.
Any of the beaches that are near passes right now are going to be holding fish. So near Johns Pass, near Clearwater Pass, any of that area. The snook are actually moving around the passes right now. So you can catch snook off the beach right now. And, if you're just looking for fun fishing, the ladyfish are always there. The big jacks are moving through. You can catch redfish there. So my suggestion would be, I'm not sure where you're going to be staying at in Tampa, but if you can find, anywhere near a pass, that's where I would go. And incoming tide is usually better.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
And Matt, you can answer this as well. Why is it that people that fish down in Florida don't like to catch jacks?
It's turning around. I think it has to be because it's not good table fare. People don't eat them, but now they're realizing how fun they are to catch. And it's no different than a tarpon. If a tarpon tasted good, then there wouldn't be any left. Everybody would eat them all. So that's, we're kind of, I hate to say it, in Florida, we can be really snobby because we have so many fish that we can catch. And, we have fishing year round, so we can be selective. I hate to say that, but yeah, I think that's really the deal, is because it doesn't taste good.
Okay. I was wondering because I've caught jacks and I love the fun. Well, of course, I wasn't going to eat anything down there. I was staying in a hotel, so I was throwing everything back. So maybe that is part of it. But man, they're a ton of fun. I guess it's kind of like catching. I don't know, Ed. What's the fish that we catch that we hate that other people?
Ladyfish. We were just talking about it before we started the live. Some people hate old trash can slam. As long as it ain't a catfish. I like the tug. If it's a bluefish, those things fight good. If it's a ladyfish, light tackle, those things put on quite a show for you. If it's a jack, I just caught a jack. Well, my first fish tournament day was a jack that was probably, 16 inches or so. But I thought I had a monster. You hear me? And I just knew right when I'm like, oh, this is the one. But, it was and when I got it in, or once I was fighting it, I knew it wasn't a redfish. But, but when, it was doing the spirals, kind of up under or as it was coming up to me, I was just like, man, this is like a kingfish, like what it would do. Pinwheel up under me. When it got close to the boat. And then when it got close, I saw that it was a jack. And I was like, man, that was a lot of fun, but not what we needed. You got to go. So, but I mean, maybe I'm different, man. Maybe I'm out there to feel the tug and have fun. And, whether or not it's going to be good on the table is kind of irrelevant to me, whether or not, it puts up a good fight.
I love catching almost anything. There's a comment, maybe we can get to this question later, but like brown sharks, I love catching sharks, at any time. And some people just can't stand it when sharks come through. And I'm like, this is awesome. I absolutely love it.
I mean, I guess you could compare jacks in Florida to sea robins up here.
I don't mind catching sea robins.
You ever get stung by one of them things?
No.
It hurts.
It's like the only fish that hasn't got me yet.
It's not fun.
Yeah. My hands, by the way, are all bloody today just from striper mouths. And I only got 3. I'm like a disaster on the water.
We got to build them calluses, Rich. Come on.
I know.
3?
Only 3 small ones, yeah.
All right. And then we have James. Where's the best places to find fish in the West? Choctawhatchee Bay. I hope I didn't destroy that.
Choctawhatchee.
That's close.
That's in the Destin area. That's between Panama City and Pensacola. I'm familiar with where it is. And actually, James, I've never fished West Choctawhatchee. However, I did just fish East Choctawhatchee a month ago for the second stop of the Florida Redfish series in Panama City, place I'd never been to before. in Choctawhatchee Bay. I just kind of scouted it out for our members a week earlier. And because of that, kind of video I'd made for our members highlighting where I think would be some good spots to fish in that area, I was kind of, really desperate for some places to find some good fish. And I figured, hey, why not? Let's go in blind into this spot that I just analyzed for our members. And I went in there and won 2 separate divisions in the kayak tournament in East Choctawhatchee Bay. Now, I was around the ICW and down there by the fingers at the Choctawhatchee River, but around Point Washington area. But there are there's a lot of good fishing in that bay. But I just also did another spot dissection for our members around the Jack Lake area, that shoreline. If you're familiar with that shoreline, James, that could be a good place to look for as well. That shoreline there around Eglin would be pretty good place to look.
Is James an insider? Do you know?
I don't. But if he is, and he gets to see these spot dissections, he's getting access to some really good stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the video is also, you also have a public version, right?
We do have a public version of that report coming soon, but only members get to see the spot dissection where we go on the map analysis.
Right.
Another big perk of being a member right there.
Join up. If you're not a member, join up.
He is a member. So James, real quick, go to the fishing tips section in the community and look for, I think what's it titled? I fished my spot dissection or something like that.
Yeah. Going in blind.
It's a good one. I watched it twice. You got 2 reviews from me. So James, go and check that out. Yeah. But that should help to translate for the rest of the day as well.
All right, Rich, you started this one, so I think you want to touch on it. Norista asked, said he would like to try for brown sharks from the beach this summer.
Yeah.
What type of setup?
Yeah, so I mean, brown sharks from the beach this summer in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, it's like fish in a barrel sometimes. It's not uncommon to see them swimming through the waves around all the bathers. So don't fish there. It'll just get the bathers angry, and especially their parents on the sand. So go a little distance away. The setup that I use is essentially what I use for live lining bunker for striped bass. So I use a inline circle hook, 9/0 up to 11/0, and I just take a half of a bluefish. I fillet half of it and then cut it in half. So I'm talking, a 14-inch smaller bluefish. And you just thread it onto that circle hook, throw it out there with the weight. You don't want it to travel very far, so you want it to hold bottom and just let it sit there. But don't just throw it out anywhere. Look for a trough, look for some type of structure off the beach, and you're almost guaranteed to pick up brown sharks. Especially at night, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to get brown sharks in the middle.
Yes. He just added that he's planning to go at night. So.
Yeah, nighttime is shark time, and it's just an outstanding way to go after brown sharks. You can get some really nice ones depending on where you are. New Jersey and Delaware, I can tell you can pull in some really solid brown sharks from the beach, and all you have to do is go in the daytime, find that trough, find a cut or something like, something where the water's running out. If you can find a rip, cast it off to the side of the rip so you're not directly in that current, and just let it sit. And that's all you have to do.
Bait it and wait.
Yes.
All right. So I'm curious to hear your, Pat and Matt's thoughts on this stuff. Nick's asking about gulp. Does the color really matter? Now, this is a bit of an inside joke between Nick and Rich. But I'm curious to see, number one, do you guys in the South use gulp? And number two, does the color matter?
Yeah, we actually use gulp, and I don't treat gulp as a separate category of lure. I would fish it exactly the same way I fish all my other soft plastics. So I have, a certain guideline that I'll use as a starting point, but it doesn't mean I stick with that. So if it's a low light situation or, I'm having overcast, I like sticking with darker colors. If it's clear water with bright skies, I'll do more natural colors. But again, that's a starting point. I will change But just because it's gulp doesn't mean, it's going to catch something. You still have to apply some knowledge to that.
All right. My opinion's a little different. So just brace yourself. Okay. So,
Hey, I asked. I'm ready.
so yes and no. Okay. No. Gulp, in my opinion, this is just me, personal opinion. For me, gulp color does not matter in most scenarios. But I will use what looks most natural. And for me, in most conditions, that's going to be new penny. Now, I will use new penny across the board, no matter what gulp product I'm using. I will vary that under one circumstance. If I am sight fishing, I will then use a gulp that is, a white or, pearl or something, maybe one with a chartreuse tail, something that's visible to me at 30 yards out, in 2 feet of grass 2 feet of water in between a couple blades of seagrass and hopefully right in front of a redfish's nose, so that is when color matters. Does it matter to the fish? I don't use loud gulp color options. So I can't say whether or not those affect the fish because I don't use them enough. Because I always just try and use what's most natural. But to me, in my mind, when I'm using gulp, it's because of the scent, not because of the color. If I'm trying to dial in on a color profile, gulp is not where I'm trying to do it at.
I like that answer.
It's a very good answer, and I agree. There are times I will say this, and because I'm the one, I actually said, when are you going to admit that color doesn't matter with gulp? Yeah, it does sometimes. In all honesty, I think it does matter sometimes. I think colors can matter. I think most of the time the fish doesn't care if it's a salmon red, which is actually orange, or a sardine color, or a chartreuse. I think quite often it is the scent of the gulp. It is like fishing a bait, a natural bait. So, but again, there are times where they'll only hit bubblegum pink for some odd reason. But that doesn't happen all that often.
All right, let's see what we got next. Miguel, he is in Charleston, South Carolina. He's been debating on getting a trolling motor, but can't swallow the price. He's got a 19-foot center console, and is it worth it for fishing?
I'll take that one. I wouldn't own a boat without a trolling motor, flat out. That would be the first accessory I would buy for it. Fishing without a trolling motor on a center console boat like that inshore is, it's almost like trying to, walk to the mall on one leg and hop the whole way. It's you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. Trolling motor all the way, whatever the cost.
Yeah, no, I'm in a kayak, so I'm in a pedal vessel, and I'm here to told you if I had a boat, well, I do have a boat here in freshwater, but I promise you, it's got a trolling motor too. And I actually had the motor on my outboard on my bass boat go out, and I fixed the trolling motor before I fixed the outboard because I can still fish with that trolling motor. I can't effectively fish with an outboard. Now, granted, I'm on a lift and I don't have to, cross a lake to get to a fishing spot. I can use my trolling motor to put out. But that's why people put trolling motors on kayaks as well, because trolling motors is effective for covering water, but it's effective for covering water at a controlled pace. You can definitely control the rate at which you're moving and the rate at which you're covering ground. Some are even as effective as locking you into a GPS position. So there you can go way down the rabbit hole if you want to, but I agree with Pat 100%. Not a single one of my fishing vessels other than a kayak would have would go without a trolling motor for sure.
Rich?
Yeah, I hear you, Rich.
Yeah, well, I got a counter opinion as the old guy. So I I had a 19-foot center console skiff, and I never had a trolling motor on it. And yes, it predated when they were actually quote unquote affordable, like they are now, where you can actually get some that work well, are reliable and everything. I caught a lot of fish on that boat, a lot of fish. I mean, permanently stained decks on that boat because caught a lot of fish. So I would say if you can't swallow the price, don't. You can get away with it, and I'm going to add this second part on. You will be a better fisherman when you can swallow the price, and you should eventually try to swallow that price because it is a game changer. As Pat mentioned, it totally changes the entire game on you. So it's almost like if you can't take the price right now, if you're uncomfortable with it, then don't get it. Learn to fish it without it. You're going to be bumping that outboard constantly. You may even be anchoring and getting a heck of a workout if you're in a strong current trying to get that anchor back. But I would eventually try to get one. But it's definitely, if you can fish without it and catch fish, you're just going to be 10 times better when you actually have that trolling motor on there. And I'll leave it at that.
I'll jump in on this one too, because I actually am on both sides of this coin. So my primary is a kayak, so I can control my drift, speed, angle, everything pretty much like having a trolling motor. I also have a 19-foot boat without a trolling motor, and that's typically where when we take the whole family out. So it's definitely tougher to be in the boat, and like Rich said, you're bumping it in and out of gear, trying to keep it, control your drift speed, stuff like that. So if you can swing getting a trolling motor, definitely do it. We don't have one right now, and I'm trying to work on my dad to get there. Currently, the boat has a 90 horse Yamaha 2-stroke. It's getting a little tired, so I think we need to repower first and then go for the trolling motor. But if you can do it, it's definitely a game changer. And I've fished on boats that have them and don't have them, and the proof is in the results. They definitely will help you produce more. Brian S. He is up in the Manatee River far enough that the water is brackish. Do you have any preference in colors for brackish water?
You want to take that, Matt?
I think we're going to say the same thing, but yeah, go ahead. I can tell we are. Go ahead.
Yeah, brackish is it's more about the color of the water and not necessarily the salinity level. If you're talking about brackish, I'm assuming you're talking tannic water, and I absolutely love the Fred, which is a pink color. For whatever reason, it just produces well in that tannic color. Matter of fact, Rich, your video, you had to switch to the Fred to get on some fish on that one day. There's just something about it, but and other than that pink color, that Fred color, it seems to be a toss up between a lighter and a darker, but it almost always seems to be that pink color. But again, with anything, when it comes to colors, there's a starting point. If it's not producing, then you need to change up.
Yeah. I personally start with again, it doesn't matter brackish. Where I'm fishing brackish, it is tannic. I mean, it's like a tea color, and sometimes there's almost no visibility. I actually start with a gold digger and then go to the Fred second, and then I move over to the lighter shades. I've had a lot of success so far this season doing that, and the Alabama Leprechaun or the gold digger are what I start with. And then regardless of which one I start with, my second one is always the Fred. I consider the gold digger and Alabama Leprechaun one try. I'll use one of them, and then I'll go to the Fred, and then I'll switch over to a Slam Shady or a Pearl, or even a gold, just something that's a little bit lighter, maybe some more flash. So he's saying it's tea-colored water. So right, exactly what Pat said. The Fred should work, and I have a video that proves it.
Yeah, man, watch a bunch of my reports. You'll see the Fred's the one. That's the one you want. You're probably fishing water that's similar to the color that mine gets, or a lot of the area that I fish anyway. It's got a lot of fresh water dump off into where I fish. So you're probably, I'd say Fred is a great spot to start. And then from there, try out the gold digger or the Alabama Leprechaun. Those are definitely my other go-tos in other situations when the water or fish act a little bit different. Those are the next two I go to. But in that color water, I always primarily start with the Fred.
We skipped over Tim, so he gently reminded me that I forgot him.
Good job, Tim.
When do you think the bite will start in Panacea Shell Point area? It is non-existent this past weekend, and he wants to catch some fish.
I'm going to take this one too, if you guys don't mind.
Sure, why not?
So, Tim, I don't know if you're a member or not, my man, but those are the waters I fish more than anything else. I'm in Panacea regularly, putting up reports for our insider members, and I can tell you that the bite is on fire in Panacea right now. And I got pictures to prove it and reports to prove it as well. I can tell you I went out with a couple insider members just the other day. I caught 8 redfish on one point. I anchored down and sat there for 20 minutes and caught 8 redfish. That's after this was the second school of redfish I'd identified. Okay. First one I caught 3 out of. So I can tell you with complete certainty they're there, but your timing for the area you may have been in may have not just been right. Also, I'm not really sure what you were throwing. I know that those fish around that area do get pretty finicky, and I know that those fish often will move on that flat. Like in Panacea, they'll sometimes be right up on the shoreline around the grass line. And then if it's gotten hot for a couple of days, they'll push off and they'll go a little bit further off of that flat. Okay, I see. Yeah, I see you are a member, Tim. All right, Tim, we'll make sure I'll send me a message in the community and I'll forward my most recent report to you from Panacea, and you can see exactly where I was, exactly what I used to catch them, and you'll see exactly how we got it done, my man. But I promise you they're there. Often the bite can be tide specific. They do like, that high water level. If you're going to be fishing that grass line on an incoming tide, as soon as the water allows, they get right on that grass line. So push in if you can with what vessel you're in. I don't know what you're in, but if you can get in there shallow, that's where they're at. I promise. Especially around those little creek mouths and those little feeder mouths. I promise they're there. Just, you may have to work those grass lines and those shorelines a little bit slower. First thing in the morning, start with topwater. Moonwalker's great. It's always a great search bait to find where those fish are at. If you're not getting anything there, go subsurface. Mulligan is crushing it right now for me. Fred color. Pay attention to what I told the last guy, Tim. Use that Fred color. It's going to be a game changer for you if you haven't already.
There we go. Cool. All right. So we got another one from Gavin. He's curious if the guys at Salt Strong could ever test the effectiveness of the saltwater slam scent against Dr. Juice original shrimp, and if you have or have not already.
No, I not that I know of. I've never used it. I went, to be honest with you, I was a big ProCure fan before I went to the Dr. Juice, and those are the two things that I've compared one over the other. All I know is the Dr. Juice Slam Scent. It works great, so I haven't really varied from that.
Yeah, I haven't actually used the original shrimp scent. I like Pat, big ProCure. Guy, and I still use ProCure, but I use Dr. Juice more now. Look, they both work, and they both work really well. I think though, and Pat, maybe you know this, isn't there a difference in the type of scent, oil versus water base, between the saltwater slam and the shrimp scent?
I think the compounding is different. They have more, enzymes in the other. I don't know the scientific, makeup of it or anything, but supposedly the formula that we have that's in the Inshore Slam is different than the others. They're supposed to be, more stuff in it, for lack of better terms. Oh, it definitely lasts longer without a doubt. Yeah. So I got a story with that. And this is actually what sold me on it, being what it seemed like a runny type of liquid. I was always a ProCure fan. I had the gel on it. I thought it lasted longer. Well, I've been using the Dr. Juice for a little while. And, I wasn't really sold on it because of the fact that I thought it wore off quicker. Well, I washed my hands about 3 or 4 times when I got off the boat, and my dog came up and started smelling my hands after I washed them 3 or 4 times. It lasts that long. So, I've been a believer in that ever since. And I got some on my leg, and he was sniffing my leg right where that Dr. Juice was. So I'm like, okay,
my hand still smells from today.
Yeah,
my hand still smells, and I've been off the water since like noon. And I've showered and everything.
Why are you smelling your hand?
Yeah, it's the Dr. Juice. And actually, I have a spot on the side of my kayak where it's right in the handle. I actually stick the little bottle in the handle, so it's always right next to me. And that's where I pour it over. So it's a little on the outside. It is, I cannot get it off of there. So it's totally, everything just kind of like the water just runs right off of that section. And just so you know, I cleaned my kayak in a car wash. So I'm using pressure washers and brushes on it. And the Dr. Juice is still there. It's still in that spot. So be careful when you're handling it. It will get on things, and it'll stay.
Yeah.
That's actually whatever I tell people when they ask, well, how long does that stuff last? And I said, well, just put it on your kayak. You find out yourself. Just put it on something and then try and get it off.
Yeah, it lasts. Yeah, and I can smell it on my hand right now.
I'm going back and I'm screen grabbing that. Oh yeah, it's on. All right, I got one from Tad. This is a good one. Do you guys have any thoughts on the use and effectiveness of power poles? I'll go first. Nope, I have no idea about them.
I was just on a boat today and was using them. That would be the number 2 accessory that I would put on a boat, but after a trolling motor. It's, but again, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this, it depends on your style of fishing. So my style of fishing, it's absolutely an awesome tool. But deep to me is 3 feet. Shallow is about 8 inches. I know you guys. I think shallow is about 10 feet. So it really depends on your style of fishing. But for me, definitely, I would definitely have to have them. Anything if you're fishing in water, say 8 feet or less, it's awesome.
Matt, you have one on your kayak. So and I know Tad has kayak. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. So I just got one not too long ago, and if I don't know if y'all aren't aware, we're not sponsored or affiliated with any of these companies, but I just got one, and I kind of put it off for a while because I'm going to be honest, even for a micro power pole for a kayak, it's a pretty good investment. I mean,
they're like $400 or $500, aren't they?
Say what now?
They're like $400 or $500, aren't they?
The system's like 600. Then if you do a battery, or the battery pack, that's another 100 and some change. The pole's another, it just adds up,
It's an investment then.
So yeah, I mean, you're almost $1,000 in no time, so it can be this for a micro, for like my kayak or a solo skiff or a small vessel, so yeah, it's a pretty big investment. But I'll say this. The tournament I just won, I would not have won it without it because of 20 mile an hour plus winds sustained. We were getting beat up. It was raining on us. It was just miserable conditions. And the plan I had was to move from spot to spot that I'd marked and planned out. But with 25 mile an hour winds blowing, I couldn't hold any spot without a solid anchoring system. Now, could I have used a stakeout pole? Yes, I did for 1.5 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also, with a stakeout pole, every time I want to move, have to manually pick it up, stow it on my kayak, then move where I want to. And if I, want to stop again, I got to put it back in. Now, one of the cool things about a power pole is often when I'm looking for fish, they're grouped together, right? So when I'm looking for these fish and I hook up with one, maybe I'm scouting or something, I don't want that one fish to drag me into where the rest of them are. I don't have 2 hands to stop, deploy my power or my anchor pin and then fight this fish. But what I can do is reach down on my lanyard, tap that button 2 times, drop that anchor behind me the whole time I've been fighting this fish. So now I've controlled my boat and I can still control the fish and not blow out the spot that I may potentially want to dial in a bit further. You know what I mean? So are they effective? Absolutely. Do they have their place? 100%. Is it a big investment? Definitely. It's definitely something you got to weigh, though. I mean, for me, now that I have one, every kayak from this point forward will have one, because I now know what I'd been missing out on for so long, that I just used, an anchor pin that I had to manually deploy, and for tournament fishing, it's definitely effective. You know what they say, power poles down, trophies up, man.
Yeah. I'd say for Tad, it depends on what depth you're going to be fishing. What's your max depth on that micro?
So mine is an 8-foot pole, and I'm staking out in, 6 and some change.
Yeah. Okay. So limited. So Tad fishes New Jersey, also a recovering bass tournament guy. So, so yeah, you say you may have just sold one there, Matt, when you said that you won the tournament because of it.
Well, and also too, I don't know if you know, Rich, but our big waters are designed for them things.
Yes.
It's got the hole in the back by the rudder for that pin to drop.
And it has the deck just for the power pole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is definitely designed for that. Tad, honestly, I know you might actually want one. Now, let me ask you this, Matt. You had 25-mile-an-hour winds. Did you encounter any of the issues that these guys on boats have that only have one power pole?
So that was you actually, perfect segue into that, Rich. You mentioned depth. That's super important. I didn't know the depth in which he's fishing. Again, like Pat said, deep water to me is 6 feet. So if I'm, fishing in 6 feet of water, I'm that power pole's not doing me much good anyway. But definitely with those 25-mile-an-hour winds, I would pinwheel, on that axis wherever that, wherever that power pole was down. I was going whatever direction the wind was blowing. I was getting blown around. So, and now they do have systems where you can mount 2 dual power poles to the back of your kayak, again, 1 power pole, big investment. 2, double the investment. So maybe take twice the amount of time to think about that one.
Yeah, deep water here is 35 feet. Would you say, Ed? 20 to 35?
I would say closer to 40 to 50. I mean,
well, in the backwaters, yeah.
Certain spots, there's some holes back there.
Yeah.
All right. So James Flynn, imagine the smell of your truck. I don't want to, but I have an idea.
Actually, it doesn't smell bad. It's not today.
All right. I think we have time for maybe one more. We're coming right up on 9:00 here. Let's give Angel another shout out here. She's asking, what is the best bait and or lure for sheep's head? She's been trying with shrimp, but the small fish are just stealing her stuff.
Can I go?
Rich? Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
All right. So best bait, I actually did a video on the 3 best baits. It's on Salt Strong. I think it's just 3 best baits for sheep's head. And I'm going to say a fiddler crab, a sand flea, and then shrimp. The problem with shrimp is that everything eats shrimp. Shrimp might even eat shrimp for all I know, because they're just such victims of the sea. Everybody wants to eat them. But I would go with the crab first. And I use Ed's jigs when I fish for sheep's head. They're called jawbreakers or shepherd jigs. And they're
shameless plug.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all share what we use, right? So Pat probably doesn't use yours. So I'm sure he'll mention what he uses, but I like to use the jigs. I don't use hooks. I don't use the regular traditional sheep's head rigs. I just like the control that you have over a jig. A light one, so a half an ounce or less is typically what I'm using, and I'm kind of, if you look at Ed's jigs, you'll see that the style hook is just beautiful for it. So that's what I would say.
I agree.
I'm sure you do.
Pat?
She said here a lure, the best lure. So we talked about shrimp. The shrimp's great. Problem with sheep's head is they're notorious bait stealers. So you really have to be paying attention to what you're doing. Typically, if you're vertical dropping, what you want to do is just raise your rod tip up slowly. And if you feel any resistance, that's the fish. You need to set the hook. But as far as lures, there's these little lures that are made by Chase Bait that are called crusty crabs. They're about 1.5 inches, maybe two inches across, and they're pre-rigged. They got a hook right in them. Those look super realistic, and they are effective on sheep's head. I would just douse them with some sort of scent. And you can do the same thing with a vertical jigging or around bridge pylons or anything like that. They're effective, but it's called a crusty crab.
I actually picked up a couple of those. I want to give them a try this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used them last year. They're good. You just have to be careful of the current because there's like almost no weight on those.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you're fishing for them. In the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, it's a lot of it is bridges, which has just current just flying through there, even at slack tide. So you have to make sure that you get into an eddy when you use those. But yeah, they're nice. Those crusty crabs are nice. I have I think a half a dozen of them sitting in the box right now.
I have some ideas to mod them too.
Matt, are you targeting sheep's head with a lure?
No, I'm not. I actually went on a trip to the Jacksonville jetties and caught sheep's head with live fiddlers. But I will say, if you're trying to two things. Number one, if you're using those crusty crab lures, a great way to use those is in tandem with the live bait. So if you're already dropping something down that they're actively going in and grabbing really quick, you can sneak in one of those artificials that'll, cause them to, catch a hook a little bit easier. And another thing is, rod selection is super important when targeting sheep's head. Again, I don't know, where you are, what type of fishing you're doing, or how deep, or if you have a lot of current. But sheep's head, because they have a really quick and soft bite, sometimes if with a heavier rod, for me at least, when I was fishing the jetties, I'm beefed up with a medium heavy rod because I'm at the jetties. But these sheep's head were stealing my fiddlers, and I couldn't even feel the bite because I was using too heavy of a rod. So when you target sheep's head, make sure you're using something that may not be too heavy for you to be able to feel those small bites when you're getting them.
That's a good point. I love that tip.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We're at about 9:05. Do you guys want to do a couple more? Or do you want to wrap it up?
Actually, go ahead, Rich. Sorry. I was going to say Cody Jackson. I want to go ahead and hit his question up real quick.
As someone who's only fished Florida flats, what are some good ways to locate solid spots in an environment like, I'm assuming, Louisiana, that has a lot of the same type of structure? What are some things to look for?
Cody, actually, to be honest with you, I just did a spot dissection with you in mind. If you want to send me a DM in the Insider Club, I'll send you the link to it. But if you want to go look for it, it was last week's spot dissection for Louisiana. But yeah, I knew you were going to go over to De La Cruz and take a look at those redfish over there. So I broke down the spot for you. But if you can't find it, send me a DM. I'll send you the link.
Pat, cool. Always crushing those spot dissections, man.
I love doing them.
I love the feedback when we get to revisit them a week after we made them, and we get to see the comments from somebody who's local to there and tell you, just some confirmation on what you find, or somebody's gone there after it came out and come back to say, hey, went exactly where you went and you were right. They were there. It's because of the trends, man. The trends.
Yeah.
Exactly. These spot dissections really help me. A lot of people, they try to figure, they ask me, it's like, how can you bounce from place to place to place and be able to find fish? So one thing, in case, somebody's watching that doesn't know, I actually live in an RV full time. I travel the country and I never fish the same place twice. and I'm always able to find fish. But one of the reasons why is because, I don't just show up to a place blind. I've been doing a spot dissection on it for probably a month out and really studying the area. And if you put that knowledge, in with the trends, you can typically find fish.
When are you coming up north, Pat?
I'm trying.
I will be in Maryland. I'll be in Maryland in July.
Isn't that cute? He thinks that's north.
No, that's not north.
Hey.
Yeah, come up like 2 more hours. Come up 2 more hours.
Actually, I think Maryland, is still considered the South.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. You're below the Mason-Dixon line. Yeah. But you can come to the extreme southern part of New Jersey and still be below the Mason-Dixon line. So you can come up and see Ed. I think the very tip of Cape May County, technically, if you take that dotted line and throw it across, it's on the southern part. Whatever I need to say, Pat, to get you coming up a little bit further north, I'm going to say it.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. So my comment before Pat talked was we should get to Cody's question before we go. So,
well, that's what I thought it was a good one. I'm like, do we want to push it or not?
Yeah, no, we started a couple minutes late, so I think we're good. With that said, I think we're going to need to wrap it up now, guys. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Next week, we have the illustrious Nick Honashevsky coming on. So he's going to be on Monday night at 8:00 live. So if you've never met Nick, you'll have fun asking him questions. He is a very engaging guy. If you've never met him at a fishing show, you're missing out. He is a very entertaining guy, loves to talk fishing, and it's going to be a good conversation. So he's going to be here Monday night. For all of you that are insiders, thanks for tuning in. For all of you that aren't, what are you waiting for? Get in there, get signed up, and we'll see you in the community. You'll get to see spot dissections. We actually should do a live spot dissection sometime, just so people can see what we're talking about. I used to do that way back in the day on my own channel. It wasn't the same exact format of what Salt Strong does. It was kind of like the cheap version of it, but
I think it'd be a little more polished now.
Yeah. We'll let Pat do it. Matt and I'll just sit and critique.
No, pressure's on. Yeah, great.
That's the goat. I'm telling you, y'all think it's a joke. Pat's the spot dissection goat. I watch Pat spot dissection. I'm talking over I'm fumbling over myself. I'm getting so excited. I get excited about Pat's spot dissections because he thinks in a different way than I do. So it's, and even Rich, like I watch all the other coaches' videos when I get a chance to, man, because we all have a different way of approaching things. So, even collectively, even as a coach, man, just like you said, Rich, you remember, well, so were me and Pat for a long time before. Hey, man, Hair Club for Men, you know what I mean? We're here. We're clients too, But it does work, So I think it's the spot dissections and being able to watch each other or all the other coaches, we're learning from each other constantly, so even being able to watch one of Pat's on the water reports or spot dissections, I get to see the adjustments that go through Pat's head. So I can tuck those away for when I'm in a situation, I'm like, man, I don't even know what to do right here. But Pat had this video that said he's been in a situation like this and this worked for him. It's those little adjustments like that make all the difference, man. And for me as a tournament angler, being able to learn from the other guys, the other coaches next to me, that's just really a great opportunity because I got some of the best in the business right next to me.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Before we go, I'm going to sneak one more in because I think this is quick and easy. Randy, if we go camping for 2 days, are you able to keep redfish on the drive home? I'm going to say yes, as long as it's cleaned and gutted and on ice. I don't see a problem.
That was my exact response. As long as you gut it, dress it, and it's on ice, it's fine.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't keep fish. I don't eat fish. I don't know. Good.
I used to work at a seafood market. You're fine, my man. As long as that fish is gutted, you are good.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to cut it here. Next week, Nick Honashevsky is going to be on. So until then, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.
'Cause fishing